Begin. Give an example from your life of how you achieved an objective.
Good example of my life was throughout from like kindergarten to high school. I was a really chubby kid, and when I was like a freshman, I was like, I want to start working out and I want to get skinny, you know. And so I took a strength and exercise class and I worked really hard, kept working, and I slimmed down, and that was a good achievement.
Good. What happens when you think you're going to fail and you actually succeed?
You get really discouraged when you feel like you're gonna fail, but I feel like if you just keep, like, no matter how bad it feels, just get it done, because when you get it done, no matter how bad you feel you failed, when it's done and you watch it, a lot of the time you think, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
That's a good attitude. Why is creative expression important to you?
Creative expression is important to me because I feel like a lot of people, it's just a way you express yourself. It's the word in itself. Like when it comes to anything, if you're acting, you're expressing how you feel. If you're doing editing, you're expressing visually. Just the film industry overall is just you're expressing how you feel visually, and others get to see that.
Mm-hmm. Give an example of an obstacle you've experienced and how you overcame it.
A good obstacle was I was working on a PSA with some friends, and it was kind of hard because they were kind of cutting, like I was pulling their end of the table because they were my friends, so it was kind of hard to be like, hey, you need to do this, but I pulled their slack, but I also was like, hey, I know we're friends, but you have to take this seriously and you have to get this done.
Mm-hmm. So list the things that you bring to the table that define your uniqueness.
I think good things that I bring to the table are, I'm hardworking, good at time management, I'm very easygoing, and I like to work with others a lot.
Mm-hmm. On to more specialized questions regarding your job with us. What editing program do you use, and which do you prefer?
I use Final Cut Pro X, Adobe Premiere Pro, and After Effects, and I really prefer Premiere.
And why is that?
I prefer Premiere just because I feel like it's more advanced and it gives you more creative expression with what you can use in your footage.
In terms of like color correction?
Color correction,
audio?
Keyframing, especially audio too, that's another thing.
Give an example of editing techniques you've learned.
Good editing techniques I learned were probably like just keying, color correction, fixing audio, that's a big one, and then, L cuts and J cuts.
Could you give an example of time management you had to do?
A good time management example is I work at Home Depot, and so I go outside and push the carts, and my friend didn't show up to work, and it was a Saturday, so there was no carts or anything, and so I had pretty much an hour before we opened to get all the carts set up and everything, so yeah. I managed to do that. I don't know how, but I did.
How does your creativity manifest itself in your work?
I like to, no matter what I'm working on, if it's a PSA, a short film, a music video, I like adding my own style into it and really kind of putting my own like little sprinkle of like creativity into it just to give it more life.
Could you give an example?
A good example is like me and my friends working on a music video, and I decided I wanted to add more like pop and make it more alive. So I messed with the color correction a little bit. I made it like more like brighter, and I messed with like the music a little bit and enhanced it. And so.
Were you giving it sort of an MTV kind of feel?
Kind of, yeah.
How do you feel about working with others? I kind of believe you've answered this, but let's do it once more.
Yeah. I just am very comfortable with working with others. I like seeing other people, and I like especially getting other people's ideas where if I'm working on something, like especially like dual editing, where like two people working on one project, it's kind of like I have this idea and they have this idea, and it's just like, oh, I like that idea, let's use this. And then they're like, oh, I like your idea, let's also use this. And it makes this really cool project.
So you work well with others.
Mm.
Fantastic.